Hello, hi. Great to be here. Thank you all for joining us for this first ever virtual Wildlife Conservation Network Expo. Great that you could be here, and thank you so much for tuning in to The Elephant Show. My name's Frank Pope. I'm the CEO of Save the Elephants, and I'm here joined virtually by Nancy Odweya, who's the head of our education program. Today, we're going to tell you a story about the future of Kenya's elephants. But first, I'd like to set the scene a little. Save the Elephants is a small research and conservation organization based in Kenya, where we do fundamental research into elephant behavior and then use the insights that we gain to guide our conservation efforts. So at one research camp here in the south of Kenya, we mainly investigate solutions for farmers who are living with elephants. But our story today is set in Samburu, where we have one of the world's longest running investigations into elephant society. Tough rangers like these have been critical for saving elephants and preventing their demise at the hands of poachers. But the long-term future of elephants is not in their hands. Big businessmen and politicians are going to play their part in determining the future of elephants, but they don't get to decide it either. No, the future of Kenya's elephants is going to be held in the hands of these guys. Yes, it's in the hands of the kids who live amongst them. Now, of course, you're saying children are, of course, can inherit the earth and they're the next generation, the decisions will count. But the children I'm going to talk to you today about have got a much bigger role to play than most. Kids like these, Zaytuna, Stella, and Benjamin. These guys and girls are going to play an outsized role in determining the shape of elephants and their future in northern Kenya. So get ready for a story of ancient cultures, colliding worlds, enormous challenges, incredible perseverance, terrifying encounters, and hope. So we first came to northern Kenya to study elephant lives 25 years ago. Partly because the elephants that live here are more trusting of humans than most. And a lot of this is down to the relationship that they have with the Samburu people. Now, the Samburu are pastoralists. They're nomads that live their lives following the rain and the grass, living off the blood and the milk of their herds. They don't eat wildlife. And they've got a really deep connection with the land and the animals that they share it with. When we asked the Samburu what we could do for them in return for all the help that they were giving us, they had little hesitation. Education, they said. Education for their kids is what they would like. They could see the changes on the horizon. They could see the roads snaking up from the south that were getting bigger and faster. They could see traditional villages that used to be nomadic suddenly calcifying into permanent towns. Cell phones came, and with them, social media. A full-scale collision of civilizations was underway. Faced with the steamroller of change, the Samburu knew that education was going to be the best way for them to make a future on their terms. Well, back in 1990, in a little hut like this, in an area of Samburu in northern Kenya called Oldonyero, a little boy called Benjamin was born. Now, he was one of 11 children. He was always a smart kid, and his father had big dreams for him as a herder. Because for cattle people, there is no greater honor than to be tasked with guiding and defending the herd. You are the protector of the family's wealth, and you need to have your wits about you. But before graduating to cows, you got to train with the goats. If you come home as a little boy herding and you're missing a goat, you're going to be whipped and soundly. So Benjamin became a great tracker. But there were other tracks in the dirt alongside the hoof prints, and little Benjamin kept on getting distracted. There were so many other stories going on around him, and he just kept losing track of the goats. And by 1998, which was the year that Save the Elephants arrived in Samburu, Benjamin's father gave up and agreed to let him to start boarding at the nearest primary school. No more goats for him, just go and do your studies. But after Benjamin's first term, he came home proudly bearing an extraordinary report card, showing him to be number 1 in the class. But Benjamin's father, for whom his big numbers of livestock was his life as a herder, the bigger number, the better the number. And he was furious. Why, after all the fuss you've been making about going to school and the sacrifices I've made to send you here, why are you scoring only 1? Benjamin couldn't make him understand, but he could make the school admissions boards understand, and pretty soon he got offered a place at one of Kenya's best secondary schools. Unfortunately, talent on its own is not enough, as we'll find out shortly. If life was tough for Benjamin as a Samburu boy, it's far tougher being a Samburu girl in a fiercely patriarchal society. Little girls are expected to help with the cooking, help with the cleaning, carry the water out, and do all the other chores around the camp, including making sure that the little boys are fed, clothed, and ready for school. Well, despite these challenges, girls like Habiba, Zaytuna, and Stella are changing their world. The Elephant Scholarship Program that we run takes smart kids like these who can't afford to go to secondary school. We fund their education, all their other needs, get them their uniforms, get them to school, put them through extracurricular learning programs in the holidays, all the time while providing internships and work experience opportunities to really get them on the ladder and build them up to be the leaders of the future. Habiba's scholarship gave her the confidence to compete with the boys in her culture and be a success in her own right. And she's becoming an increasingly powerful voice. Zaytuna joined our scholarship program at the same time as Benjamin, and by going to school in Nairobi, she avoided the child marriage that was definitely waiting for her back in the village. She's now working in finance, and I think she's going to be a high flyer. But she never forgets the elephants that got her to where she is today. Stella, meanwhile, was raised in the town of Wamba, to the northwest of our research camp. Bright and adaptable, she didn't really know what she should turn her skills towards until she did a spell working in a community clinic where she found her calling. And that's pretty lucky for Samburu, because now she's on the front line of their COVID response, making everyone in Samburu safer through her learning. So for elephants in the wild world, education is an important thing for many reasons. Primarily because it reduces birth rates. Female education is known to decrease birth rates, and that's critical for if we're going to lessen the pressure on the environment, as well as improving the prospects for each individual family, for the wider communities, and even for the country as a whole. Thanks to students like Stella, who now works as a nurse, as I was saying, improved access to healthcare is especially critical, and especially at times like this. The last thing is that these elephant scholarships create a linkage between elephants and opportunities, and therefore increased tolerance for elephants. And that's super important, because elephants are hard to live with, even if your people have got a long history of doing so. Some kids, like Zaytuna, Stella, and Habiba, have become scholars because they are smart and they're needy and they're lucky. Others have become scholars because they're unlucky. because occasionally elephants do get angry. This is a photo of an angry matriarch in the Masai Mara tossing a buffalo who'd got in the way of her family. And the same can all too easily happen to a cow or a car or a person. A herder could bump into a bull in must when he's flooded with testosterone, just looking for trouble. Or he could unwittingly get between a female and her baby. And elephants in any of these situations can be extremely dangerous, especially if your only protection is a stick or a club. And when that happens, it's truly terrifying. Samuel was 9 years old when he was out herding goats in Samburu with his friend Lightus. He was in quite thick brush when he suddenly turned and there was an elephant. The elephant ran him down, picked him up and threw him into the bushes, tearing open his abdomen as he did so with his tusks. And Samuel lay there in the bush, gravely wounded, stuffing his intestines back into his belly while packing the wound with sand to stop the bleeding. Meanwhile, his friend, 9 years old, remember, 9 years old, ran for help and was bouncing from community place to village, trying to find someone who could help him before he ran into Elephant Watch Camp. Now, Elephant Watch Camp is an extraordinary organisation, and I'll tell you about in a minute, but they immediately scrambled into action and rushed him off to an Italian mission hospital and saved his life. Here he is after the operation, and the Italian doctor had plucked every single grain of sand from his belly before sewing him up. And after what was pretty much a marathon operation, they had quite a deep bond. And Dr. Pino still comes back every few years to pay a visit to Samuel. And Samuel works as a waiter at Elephant Watch Camp now. In fact, we offered both those boys, Samuel and Lightus, scholarships, but only Samuel wanted the life of a warrior. He didn't want to be a schoolboy, so he actually said, no, I'm going to go the traditional route. Lightus, meanwhile, took us up on the offer. He went to school, he did really well, and he's now an up-and-coming wildlife guide at Elephant Watch Camp. Now, all the guides at this camp have been trained by our researchers. They can recognize the hundreds of individual elephants that use the reserves. And as a result, guides like Serenoi here, who's another elephant scholar, are some of the finest in Africa. Top safari outfits and wildlife photographers from around the world, they say there's nowhere else that can offer an elephant experience like going out with these guys. So this is the power of education. It gives these people diverse skills for a culture to survive in this ruthless modern world. It's empowering ladies, it's employing people, and critically, it's creating ambassadors for elephants. Now, although it's critical to educate young girls, it's also really important that we bring the boys along too, because if we're going to change these patriarchal mindsets and create a lasting wave of adjustment to the modern world, we have to do both. Which brings us back to Benjamin. So we left Benjamin having won his place at a prestigious secondary school. His father reluctantly sold 2 cows to try and make the fees, but turns out this money wouldn't stretch far enough. They had to find a cheaper high school. And then 2 weeks before Benjamin's end-of-term exams, disaster struck. His father was killed in one of the tribal clashes that plagued the north. At that point, Save the Elephants, in partnership with Elephant Watch Camp, got wind of his situation, and soon afterwards, Benjamin was awarded an elephant scholarship and finally got admission to his dream high school. He went on to win a first-class degree in geospatial engineering, and he was in pretty high demand after graduation. We had to fight to employ him because all the renewable energy companies, the ministries, all of them wanted him. But what he wanted more than anything else was to work with elephants. And that's just what he's doing. So now he works full-time as an elephant movement analyst working on our tracking program, analysing where elephants go and why, and trying to figure out ways to protect these movements. Because these movements need protecting. These ancient routes used by elephants are under threat. So we're now going to zoom into Oldeniro. Here's Benjamin's home area, and as you can see, an escarpment divides the semi-arid plains up in the lands of the north, which stretches all the way up to South Sudan and southern Ethiopia, from the wetter highlands of central Kenya, which are over to the left. It's about a 3,000-foot difference. It's a journey that can end up taking them over 100 miles. Now, this natural pass in the environment, which elephants have long used when forced to move from the plains to seek water, you can see here from the black spaghetti here that this is what elephants were used to doing from the start of our tracking program in 1999 to 2012. Unfortunately, people also value this pass, and you can see the human settlements in Oldeniro town begin to spread, and elephants are forced to divert, as you can see here in the red, from their movements between 2012 and today. And still, the town grows, threatening to block their route. Benjamin and David have been meeting with the Oldeniro community to present and discuss this data, and have got agreement that the town will set aside land for a corridor, this blue area here, to allow the elephants to pass in perpetuity. This is a long process, but there is hope, and we are making progress. Benjamin is still working on analysing these movements, but for the moment from a distance, because he didn't stop with his first degree. Thanks to friends like all of you, he's now doing a Masters of Science degree in the UK. He sent us this message.
Jambo, this is Benjamin Loloju, a geospatial analyst from Save the Elephant Samburu. I want to send you a lot of love and a huge thank you for coming here today and for always being there for us every step of the way for the elephants we adore most and other wildlife. I am speaking with you from my small room at Cranfield University, United Kingdom. Here, we are under total lockdown because of coronavirus. These are tough times for everyone, but we hope for a better future and we continue pressing on. I am here studying my MSc in Geographical Information Management, a technology-driven course whereby it will enable us at Save the Elephants to make powerful decisions regarding elephant security, their movement, their ranges, and corridor protection. As a small boy, I grew up in a Samburu village called Oldeniro. Every morning, I was fascinated by elephant footprints. Little did I know, this is a major elephant corridor that joins Samburu and Laikipia. Today, I am being inspired and driven by the same movement of elephants through science and technology along this corridor. An example is my favorite elephant called Zawadi. Every year, she moves from Samburu to Laikipia, but I am totally surprised this time round. She has made an extraordinary journey that I couldn't believe myself. In just 10 days, she has walked miles with her family, all the way from Samburu to Laikipia and back. What is driving her movement? What might be the cause? They never cease to surprise me. And for me, this has been an inspiration. For me, I realized my education dream through Save the Elephant Scholarship Program. And today, I can't even explain how proud am I to be involved and to be working with elephants in Samburu. Thank you.
Thank you, Benjamin. Well, we're collecting the data we need to define what elephants need. But this data will only take us so far. Elephants will only have a future if they have the sympathy of Kenyans, and in particular, those Kenyans who live in elephant rangeland. Our elephant scholars like Benjamin, like Zaituna, Habiba, and Stella, are on the front line of this diplomatic effort, bringing our two species towards a future of harmonious coexistence. At this point, more than 200 scholars have benefited from the program, pursuing careers ranging from wildlife conservation, medicine, teaching, all of them transforming their families and their communities. So just want to say a big thank you again for joining us here, for listening to how education can transform the lives and the future of elephants. Can't wait to hear all your questions. I'm here with Nancy. We're waiting keenly to hear about what you want to hear about.